Russell Bufalino was the boss of the Bufalino crime family, also known as the Northeastern Pennsylvania crime family. He would play a significant supporting role in Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. Bufalino was born on September 25, 1903 in Sicily. His family immigrated to Buffalo in New York, where Bufalino became a criminal during his teenage years. Many of the youths whom Bufalino worked with during his early years would go on to become the top bosses in the Buffalo crime family and other families along the East Coast, which would serve him well in the future. In his early years, Bufalino made his buck through extortion, theft, money collection, robbery, and drug dealing. When the Prohibition Act came into place in 1919, he became involved in the bootlegging business as well. Another bootlegger who Bufalino would start a strong professional relationship was Joseph Barbara. Bufalino relocated to Barbara's territory when the latter was named the boss of the Northeastern Pennsylvania crime family, and he named Russell as the underboss. The Northeastern Pennsylvania crime family was not a large one by any means. At best, it contained only 30 or 40 made men. However, it had strong ties with the larger and far more powerful Buffalo crime family, which meant Barbara had a stronger influence in the Mafia Commission than he otherwise would have. As a result, the underboss Bufalino had opportunities to meet and greet with some of the top dogs in the mob at the time. In 1957, Vito Genovese had become the boss of the Luciano crime family, the most powerful of the original 5 families in New York. He wanted to organize a meeting with the other members of the mob as to have his power officially recognized and to discuss current issues. The boss of the Buffalo crime family, Stefano Magaddino, asked Barbara if he could host the meeting at a ranch that Barbara owned. Barbara was reluctant, but at the insistency of Magaddino, he eventually agreed. This meeting would be known as the Appalachian Conference, named after the location of the summit in New York. Russell Bufalino was heavily involved in the preparation, ordering food, arranging hotel accommodation and such, and on November 14th, 1957, 101 top mobsters representing all 27 crime families, along with other delegates from Sicily and Canada, arrived for this historic meeting. This included the already mentioned Vito Genovese and Carlo Gambino, head of the Gambino crime family at the time. However, disaster struck. A state trooper had caught wind of the meeting by noticing Barbara's son making reservations for the mob at a local hotel. When he drove to the ranch to investigate and saw that a meeting was about to take place, the FBI were informed and soon the place was swarmed with police officers. 69 mobsters were arrested on that day, including Russell Bufalino, with the others managing to make an escape. However, most who were arrested were later released without charge, including Bufalino. It was Bufalino himself who brought forward the initial appeal to the US court, who then dismissed the entire case on a legal technicality, increasing Bufalino's stature amongst the Mafia. The embarrassing events at Appalachian was a huge blow to the secrecy of the Mafia underworld, and in particular to the reputation of Joseph Barbara. This was one of the factors, others including increased media and police attention, which convinced Barbara to retire from his role in 1958, leaving Bufalino as the acting boss. With Barbara dying in 1959, Russell Bufalino was now recognized as the official boss of the Northeastern Pennsylvania crime family. Very quickly he gained a well-respected reputation of a boss who knew how to control his family, never drew attention to his wealth or influence, and was a rational, cunning, thinking man. In October 1963, a low-level member of the Luciano crime family, now known as the Genovese crime family, had testified about the inner workings of La Cosa Nostra to the authorities as part of an investigation to revealing the ties between organized crime and the Teamsters union. His name was Joseph Valachi, and in this famous incident in court, which was shown on television, he single-handedly named all the top bosses of the Mafia in the US, including Bufalino. Many nuggets of information were made available, some confirmed whilst others remained inconclusive. Bufalino was called one of the most ruthless and powerful leaders of the Mafia in the United States by the committee in charge of the hearings. It was also thought that the man was in contact with the CIA in regards to the Cuban project to assassinate Cuban President Fidel Castro, and was involved in a plot to assassinate the President of the US, John F. Kennedy. No conclusive evidence was ever forwarded, though these claims have been strengthened by mob hitman and associate of Bufalino, Frank Sheeran, whose deathbed confessions have been covered in my last video. For the next 2 decades or so, however, Bufalino's family prospered. His main source of income came through coal mining, loan sharking, gambling, labor racketeering, and trucking unions. He also had stakes in legitimate interests such as real estate. In the 70s, Buffalo crime boss Stefano Magaddino had died, which left the family divided and its power weakened. Bufalino seized on this opportunity to send family members into that region and set up gambling operations and other investments. It was in this decade that Bufalino had become a senior member of La Cosa Nostra. In fact, it is thought that, whilst the family was expecting internal problems, Bufalino was appointed as the interim boss of the Genovese crime family. In 1977, Bufalino was indicted on extortion charges after having threatened Jack Napoli, a man who owed $25,000 to an associate of the Bufalino crime family. This man was already under law enforcement surveillance and he testified against Bufalino, after which he went into the witness protection program. In order to reduce the possibility of further charges, Bufalino took a step back from the mob operations and appointed his consigliere Eddie Sciandra as acting boss. Bufalino was convicted on August 8, 1978 and was sentenced to 4 years in prison, from where he sent orders to the current leaders of the family through his driver. In the 80s, US law enforcement continued to do what they had been doing in terms of bringing down organized crime. There were many indictments, trials, and high-profile convictions, including the heads of the 5 families in the famous Mafia Commission trial in 1986. Convictions like these gave law enforcement a boost, and they became even more motivated to clean up the country. Bufalino had become a top priority once he had been released from prison. He had discovered the hiding place of the witness who originally got him sent to prison, and Bufalino sent the hitman Jimmy the Weasel Fratiano to murder him. Unfortunately for Bufalino, Fratiano was a government informant and he testified against his former boss, sending him to prison with a 10-year sentence. With him in jail and several of the family members under investigation, the family's power began to dwindle. Bufalino was now over the age of 80 and in poor health. In 1989, he gave the running of what remained of the northeastern family to a man called Billy Diella. When Bufalino had served his sentence and was released, he continued to be a significant influence on mob activities despite his health and age. He remained under the watch of authorities right up until his death on February 25, 1994, at the age of 90. He is thought to have died of a heart attack. Much of this will not make it to Martin Scorsese's movie. Instead, it will focus on Bufalino's relationship with his associate and hitman Frank the Irishman Sheeran. In 1982, amid FBI investigations on the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, Bufalino admitted that he knew both Sheeran and Hoffa in front of the Pennsylvania Crime Commission. And many years after his death, Sheeran would confess that Bufalino ordered him to kill Jimmy Hoffa, an event which serves as a primary plotline in the film. Russell Bufalino, also known as the Quiet Don and the Old Man, will be played by Joe Pesci in The Irishman, set to be released in 2019. Thanks for watching.